we're going to talk a little bit about freedom. And of course, we appreciate the fact that we live in a country where we have relative freedom. I know that some of us are conspiracy theorists and, believe that this is really just a gilded cage and that freedom is relative. But I really kind of wanted to talk about the freedom that goes on inside our head. And this is freedom that nobody can ever take away from us. A perfect modern example of that would be Nelson Mandela. Even though he was under restraint for so many years, he still felt that he had a relative freedom because the freedom that he expressed was inside his heart and inside his head. And I think that that's the kind of freedom that we should really be focusing on as metaphysically spiritual people, that kind of freedom. And so I wanted to tie that into an idea this morning that came to me, and there's a couple of them, but one that stuck in my mind was the freedom from the law in the Old Testament. And this is kind of what we do to ourselves and why we want to be mindful about our freedom. So what happens is there's this set of laws, restrictions, and guidelines that were not intended to restrict us, more to remind us of our own misguidedness and the way that we treat each other and the way that we should be as opposed to the way that we actually are as human beings. We are kind of self-absorbed. That's the way we are. We all have our own agenda. We do, because it's us. It's our life. That's our agenda. And so we have to often force ourselves to think differently about the way that we conduct our personal business because we're caught up in our own stuff all the time. And so to think outside of our own stuff is difficult. And that is a freedom. And so the law was put in place so that it would help us to think outside of ourselves. Then, as Christians believing that now we are free from that law. That's what Christ taught. We are free from all of these little laws and guidelines that remind us of our imperfections. Now we're free. We're perfect children of God in that we fulfill the law with our behaviors too. Love God and love our neighbor. These are simple laws, right? If we do these things, then everything else that was in the law would be fulfilled, right? Simple. So what do we do? In mainstream Christianity and in a lot of the groups that I know a little bit about, and the group that I was very strongly associated with for many years, we, instead of celebrating our freedom, continue to restrict ourselves. We do this as metaphysicians as well. So we put these laws on ourselves. We put these guidelines and these behaviors and these structures and these difficult situations on ourselves, and we pummel ourselves. We beat ourselves up and don't allow ourselves to really fully and completely enjoy the freedom that has been afforded to us. So someone says, here's a pie, it's for you. And you go, oh, I'm on a diet. But I'll just eat a little tiny piece right here, but I can't have the crust. And really, I can't eat the berries, I'll just eat the stuff that's in between. And this is what we do. We pick apart at our own joy. We pick apart at our own victory. And we restrict ourselves in our freedom. So a way that we do that is, for example, people that say, there are certain rules that I must follow in order to gain some kind of enlightenment. So do you have to meditate every morning and every night in order to be a spiritual person? No. No, you don't. Do you have to pray a certain way to be a spiritual person? No. No, you don't. No. Do you have to be a vegetarian? No. Do you have to be paleo? No. These are all things that we put on ourselves. These are all restrictions and ideas that we ourselves put on us. Do we have to practice magic? Do we not practice magic? No, what do we do? Who are we? Really, we just are. That's the freedom. We are. We exist. We breathe. We think. And we behave in line with the awareness that others have the freedom to do the same. That's the catch. So really, the freedom that we express and exercise is the freedom to allow others freedom. I don't put my restrictions and my ideas and my thoughts and my expressions on somebody else. And so we're celebrating recently a lot of freedoms. The freedom of homosexuals in the state of Florida to marry. Yay! You know, the freedom of women to have choices about their body and how they're going to govern their own flesh. Yay! These are amazing freedoms that we have that are given to us by the government and the people that make the decisions for government. That's us. So we have a voice that is being heard. Are we hearing our own voice inside ourselves, our own freedom? Or are we saying, I'm not going to hang with those people because they do this? And that's not how I do my thing. They don't meditate, I'm not going to hang out with them. They don't understand that that's what they have to do. No. They don't have to do anything. You maybe feel like in your journey, in your connectedness to spirit, these are things that you should do. We make suggestions to you here in our lessons. We suggest this works. Why? Because it works for me. It works for me. Perhaps it'll work for you. But there are no rules here. So there's no consequences except the consequences of your own decisions. And that's the freedom that you have to exercise as a human being. And it's a beautiful thing. So we celebrate that. We celebrate that for ourselves, and we celebrate that for you. Now, what are some things that you can't do with your freedom? Okay, and I'm going to use a bad word. I don't do that very often, so it'll make Sylvienne very happy. So
go for it, girlfriend.
You might want to put a warning on that.
Warning. I'm going to say a bad word. So, yeah, does your freedom give you the right to be an asshole? Yeah, it does. But guess what? There are consequences for certain kinds of behaviors. So no, if you're going to be this way, then there is probably a response to that. If you're going to be selfish, if you're going to be greedy, if you're going to do things that you know are not in line with an awakened person because of whatever reason, because of circumstances, you woke up on the wrong side of the bed, you feel like it, this is who I am, you have the freedom to do all those things. But then the consequences of those behaviors and the consequences of the actions that you participate in or demonstrate, you have to live with those. I don't want to be around somebody like that. I don't want to be around somebody who is constantly talking about themselves, and then when they say, and so how are you, they just don't even listen to what I'm saying and just continue to talk about themselves. How many of you know someone like that? All right. Are they someone you feel especially close to? No.
I know all about them, yes.
Geographically, yes.
Well, I mean, but that's, you know, and sometimes you don't have any choice about that. So then you're exercising your ability to be patient and kind to somebody that you really can't get away from within a physical proximity of. But I don't go out and look for relationships with people like that. And oftentimes what I do is demonstrate a behavior that helps them to see what it is that they're doing. Because they have the freedom to behave that way and to express themselves in that way. But it does limit their experience. We don't want to limit our experience. I don't want to limit my experience. I want everyone to enjoy my company. I want people to look forward to seeing me. I want people to be inspired by the things that I share and the things that I say and the way that I behave. I want you to feel free to express yourself in my company. And I want you to know that I value your freedom of expression and thought and behavior. And so that's what I wanted to talk about a little bit this morning. What is your freedom? Are you really taking advantage of the opportunity to be a free person and to demonstrate that in your behavior with others, and you're allowing them also to be free? Because that is what it means to be an awakened person, truly awakened person. Is that you don't put your journey and your ideas and your thoughts on somebody else, limiting their freedom. Because you're free. and you appreciate it, and you value it, and it's important to you, and it's meaningful. Does that make sense? So, enjoy your freedom. Happy Freedom Day.
Yay.
Namaste.